Thank you very much for the nice introduction. My fascination is the future of travel. And in order to predict what's going to happen in the future, my research team and I at the Lufthansa Innovation Hub, we engage in the analysis of thousands of data points on startups, venture capital, patents, press sightings, website and app traffic, and many more, all in order to identify the most relevant trends and radical shifts affecting our industry. And what I want to do over the next 5 minutes is present you the biggest bets in travel and mobility tech as we head into the new decade. And I would like to kick it off by asking you to think about and count all the new types of transportation that you have been using for the first time in recent weeks and months. And I would imagine that many of you regularly sit in a MyTaxi or FreeNow, as it's called today. Others have experimented with standing on an electric kick scooter, using a shared bike. And maybe even a few of you took a Flixbus to Munich in order to attend the DLD weekend. The takeaway here is the way we get from A to B has changed quite tremendously in recent years and decades. And if we actually look at all the new types of transportation and rank them by the average distance that each of those modes of transportation is used for, we can actually identify 16 major categories that make up the space that we coined new transportation. And it's starting on the left-hand side with the micromobility modes, such as kick scooters. And the more we move to the right, the longer the trips get, including supersonic air travel providers and space travel offerings that might take us to the moon one day. So talking about the biggest bets, in all those 16 segments, global category leaders have emerged. Most of them being startups, most of them being funded and founded within the last couple of years only. But it's not only the way we move from A to B that has changed. When we think about the way we plan, organize, and experience travel, change has been even more transformational. Again, think about the way we used to plan a business trip or vacation 15 years ago. I would assume that many of you, have scrolled through physical catalogs before, travel guides, in order to find inspiration on where to go next. And ultimately, we would talk to a human travel agent in order to, plan everything through and ultimately book. Well, we all know this process has been turned totally upside down, has been fully digitized. There are digital challenges that have positioned themselves across all those traditional steps of the travel booking process, including our panelists today. So we would look at online sites such as Culture Trip in order to find inspiration, look at deals on secret escapes. We would compare flight prices on meta-searching sites, and we would ultimately share experiences, impressions with our loved ones, with our family and friends on platforms such as Instagram, for instance. Now, you might be asking yourself, why is this relevant for an airline like Lufthansa? And the answer is, also airlines have been highly affected by the digital transformation that's going on the travel and mobility end. And I want to explain this in a little bit more detail. So for the longest time, airlines have only or solely focused on the passenger while they were on board, right? But obviously, taking a plane from A to B is only one component of the entire door-to-door travel experience. People need to research their plans, their vacation trips online. They need mobility in order to get to and from the airport. They want to do stuff at the travel destination, and they need to book it somewhere. They need hospitality, whether it's in an Airbnb or a classic hotel. So overall, the travel and mobility space has become intertwined, and airlines are one component of that. So we believe at the Lufthansa Innovation Hub that airlines need to look beyond flying. And they need to look beyond flying in order to cater to the traveler of today. And this is what we do at the Lufthansa Innovation Hub on a daily basis. We very much look for opportunities to expand beyond flying, and we very closely monitor who all these digital challenges are that have positioned themselves along the traveler journey. And I want to prove some numbers so you can get a sense of what we have observed along the way. First of all, innovation dynamics have been going through the roof in recent years and decades. We currently see about 2,600 startups that have something to do with travel or mobility in their core offering. Those 2,600 startups have raised a record high $43 billion in venture capital funding in 2018. 2019 came in a little lower at around 30 billion, but I think the upwards trend, the trajectory is still pretty evident, indicating that the speed and level of innovation in our space is certainly accelerating. To put this in a little bit more context, travel and mobility tech, in our opinion, is arguably the most attractive field right now in startup land. Around 18%, or every fifth US dollar invested by venture capitalists, goes into startups that have something to do with travel and mobility tech. And what has this all led to? We can see that many of the most valuable companies in the world actually play in the travel and mobility tech arena. We currently count 45 so-called unicorns, so private companies valued at $1 billion US or more. 17 of those companies are located in the US, including one of our panelists today. More than half of unicorns are actually from Asia, particularly China. So this is also one of the major trends in our market, the innovation shift towards the Far East. Europe is lagging behind a little bit with only 7 unicorns, including the popular German ones, Get Your Guide, Omeo, and Flixbus. So with this all being said, I'm very excited that we have 3 of the biggest bets in our market with us here today at the DLD. And without further ado, I would say let's get our panel started and hear their take on the future of travel. Thank you.
And now I would like to ask my fellow panelists on stage. Please welcome Ariel Cohen, the co-founder and CEO of TripActions, Frederic Lalonde, the CEO and co-founder of Hopper, and Julian Weselek, the co-founder and CEO of Tourlane. Please give him a warm welcome. Julian, maybe in order to kick off the session with you, maybe you can explain real quick for all of those who do not know what Tourlane is. What do you guys do? And also, what makes your service stand out between established online travel agencies such as Secret Escapes, for example, which I'm using a lot?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me. I'm Julian, co-founder of Tourlane. Tourlane, for I'm sure many of you haven't heard of us, is a booking platform for tailor-made travel experiences. So we offer trips to special destinations like Vietnam, Costa Rica, or even Patagonia. Our travel experts are real destination specialists who know the hidden gems in the countries and curate together with the customer trips that are really authentic and are fitted to the customer needs. Yeah, so what we really aim to do is to empower our customers to bring their travel to the next level. I think what differentiates Tourlane compared to the established ones or the existing players, and I'm including Secret Escapes to the second part, Tourlane is a tech company with travel experts. So there used to be 2 parts in the travel market. There are the classic tour operators, the TUI and formerly Thomas Cooks-like, who naturally had a high travel expertise, but never made the transition to be an online or a tech company. On the contrary, you had this wave of tech companies, Booking, Expedia, where it was all about basically bringing inventory online, which was non-curated. So it led to this massive information overload and massive inventory that's online available, but it's really hard to plan and book your 3-week trip. Yeah, so imagine you're going to Costa Rica with your family for 3 weeks. Yeah, I think, where do you start? Where do you book? It's an exhausting experience. And this is really what Tourlane is solving. We are combining the technology, bringing expertise online, and making the planning of authentic and memorable travel experiences fun.
And who would be like the usual typical Tourlane consumer? I think you're described as like offering a premium service to consumers, and maybe you can also reveal how much people spend when booking a tour or an experience with Tourlane.
I think like there is not the typical Tourlane customer. I think it's everyone who wants to have an off the beaten path travel experience. Yeah, so I think we are targeting with our trips someone who is looking for an authentic and more sustainable travel experience, so what we call internally the healthy travel. This can come from all parts. Yeah? So be it an formerly do-it-yourself kind of customer who is now really lacking time to put it together and also doesn't have the certainty in the different providers. If in case there is a need for help, yeah, who do I go to? This is the beauty of Tourlane, that you can go to one place. I mean, we don't charge a premium for our product. Yeah? I think that what makes Tourlane actually work is that you don't book the different items at 9, 10 different companies, but actually you book everything at Tourlane. Yeah? And this makes us able to invest much more in a single customer, also feeling much more responsible for our customer than all different players out there right now.
And how much or how scalable is a business such as Tourlane? Because you've talked about the human touch. You're relying on experts who are in the destination, or I think who travel at least for 1 month to that destination.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, it's scalable. Yeah, I think. I mean, we are now in our 4th year. We have been growing 400% year over year, and companies like Airbnb who have scaled their business with the hosts, the supply part, like Uber who have scaled their demand with the drivers. But for me, the question is like fundamentally wrong. Yeah? And we've heard it so many times, and I think for the first 20 investors, we got rejected at the beginning because of exactly this reason. Yeah? But for me as an entrepreneur, I'm asking the question, what value does the travel expert create for the customer? Yeah? We are building a company for customers, not investors. So we have realized that actually the travel expert makes a ton of sense in this entire process, because we believe one of the problems is that the customer is left alone online quite significantly. Yeah? And in the end, that's how we approach this topic.
Thanks, Julian. Frederic, Hopper, a platform that unfortunately does not exist in Europe yet, but we'll come to that later. But online flight booking platforms have existed for a long, long time, such as Kayak or Skyscanner. So what is Hopper exactly? So especially for the customers here in Germany, and what makes you stand out?
Thanks for having me. I do need to correct, we sell in 120 countries, and Europe is about 10% of our revenue. So we're available for download everywhere, including Germany. So Hopper was founded with the idea of using data and AI to help customers get better outcome in the core planning of air and lodging, which is 80% of the wallet. What is different about Hopper is that we're very much a data platform that happens to be in travel. So in air, where we started, we now process about 750 billion, and that's billion with a B, prices every day. So we look at all the global shopping of air on every travel agency, every OTA, and we use that to do things like predict future prices. So in North America, up to a year in advance, to the day within $5, we will tell you the best time to buy this ticket will be in 2 months, not a probability. And what is different about Hopper, it's mobile only. Obviously, we have a high adoption rate in the millennial generation, but we're very much mainstream. We're used as a tool that's on your side. So instead of going to all these websites and banging it out on 30 websites and having pop-ups that say, last room left, which we all know is true, what Hopper does is it does all this tracking and it sends you a push notification when it's time to act. We send about 1 billion push notifications. For scale, we have 50 million downloads. We sell about $1 billion of travel in 120 countries, as I was saying. 80% is North America. And what happens is people save money effortlessly. On average, people will save between $15 and $40 on air. This year, year, we introduced hotels. We have 500,000 hotels in 2,500 cities. And what Hopper does there is it finds all of the rates that hotels load that are not destined for distribution on the web. So hotels file all these funny things, you know, if you're on a website, on a private sales site, if you're looking at a package, if you've booked a tour. Like there's all this, we call it dark inventory that's available. And because we are an app, and because we are talking to you over push notifications, we are able to get you a price that you won't find on Google. 52% of the time, Hopper will save you between 10 and 50% on a hotel. A lot of those savings are in North America right now, where we've done our commercial push, but we have inventory across Europe, Latin America, and Asia also. The big difference about how we do things is we use our AI to create better outcomes for the customer. So as an example, 75% of the time, Hopper pushes a notification to a customer that says, don't buy. And we're an e-com platform, so I'm spending 75% of my resources not making money deliberately. In exchange for that, we have a completely different relationship with our customers. The trust factor is essential. So on average, on Hopper, people will start tracking their flights 120 days before departure. They will come to us every 4 to 5 days to check in on this advice. And we have a 60% repeat rate in leisure, which is no other OTA in the world has that. We're 100% transactional. We do the customer service. There's no meta, no referral. And Hopper is 100% closed. So what happens on Hopper stays in Hopper. We don't distribute to Google. We have zero ad spend. We don't do meta search. We're an entirely separate ecosystem from the traditional travel ecosystem.
Wow. It's many, many numbers. Where does all the data actually come from? Is it from that inventory that you just mentioned, or?
So in air, we get it. The answer is everywhere. So we connect to the global distribution systems. There's other systems that have volumes, and we have partnerships. So Lufthansa is one of our best partners. They're also an investor. We have data sharing agreements. So our belief is that a lot of the practices that exist in pricing and revenue management and yield and all these things come from a world where there was a human being, what we were describing earlier. So there were 300,000 travel agents, which were humans that knew nothing about their customer. So our belief is that through data, we can create a more efficient marketplace. For example, more numbers, travel is an $800 billion digital market. It's the largest vertical. It's 14% of GDP. But there's $200 billion of clicks and referrals and banners and pop-up ads. Google made $10 billion referring. If you took that out of the ecosystem, that's $200 billion of savings or margin to the supplier. So fundamentally, we believe that by aggregating this data, we can create a more efficient marketplace is what we're trying to do.
When I first heard about what you guys do, my first instinct was like, okay, you're actually destroying the Lufthansa revenue model by predicting, okay, don't book this flight now because book it later.
That did
really
come up early on.
And then you even now have a partnership with them.
Not with Lufthansa, but the American carriers are very sensitive to this. So the answer is obviously because I'm sitting here, we do not destroy the revenue of an airline, or I would not be allowed to do what we do. So fundamentally, the reason we don't do that is there's twofold. One is just purely in terms of yield management, because Hopper customers watch 120 days before departure, they are actually booking sooner. So our average purchase window is 50 days, where on average in leisure, it's more like 10 to 20, depending on the market. So what's happening is we're filling up the airplanes sooner for the airlines. And the way airlines make money is by two things, selling ancillaries or yielding up for the business traveler. So if I have added 10 travelers, 20 days, 50 days, 100 days to a Lufthansa flight, the plane is fuller and they actually get a better revenue per seat mile, which is what they care about. The more important component is because we have a conversation where we talk to our customers 40 times before and 20 times after they've purchased before they travel, we're able to do magical things. And they trust us because we've helped you save $200 on your flight. So for example, 25% of the time, we're able to get a passenger to upgrade seat class. So go from basic, where you have no, seating assignment or things like that, to economy, or from economy to premium. So because customers trust us and we've given them a good outcome on the base purchase, we're able to and interest them into the ancillary products that airlines care about. So we tend to yield better, actually, because of the booking window, but also the conversation.
Thank you, Fred. Ariel, TripActions. The business travel segment has also been around and like forever, and I always think of Amex.
105 years. That's when American Express started.
The old Panem times. Yeah, please tell us. I mean, I know that many people in the audience know about TripActions, but just for clarification, what do you guys do? What makes you special opposed to Amex?
And actually, this audience will quickly relate to this, because what we do, we make business travel seamless. So it's super easy to come to our product and to book your trip. It takes less than 6 minutes to book your entire business trip. And then to get support, right? It's snowing right now, so I may get stranded in the airport, right? And it's actually very, very hard to then call an agent and wait an hour to get a solution. With us, you're going to get an agent via chat in the app in less than 30 seconds. So it's all about helping the traveler, the business traveler, to get their job done and focus much less on the actual booking experience, all of the hassle around travel. And on the flip side, we are providing the company, first of all, adoption. Employees like to use us. So you don't need to fight with the employees all day long to book through the booking app. And therefore, the company gets visibility. They can save money. They know how they spend the money. They know where their employees are, and so on. So it's really powerful from these two perspectives. And lastly, because you've actually touched it, what it gives all of the suppliers that we are working with, such as Lufthansa, is the ability to have access to the companies, to the users. So it's really create a win-win-win between the traveler, the corporate, the company, and the suppliers, such as airlines, hotels, cars, and so on.
What do you think, how will business travel change in the future?
I think there are several things. First of all, and it was interesting to hear the human element of planning my vacation, right? And I was listening to this, and I actually want to be your customer because I actually really know, what you are talking about and the planning and all of this. And I think you'll see it across retail, not just in travel, that the buying experience, the shopping experience, through machine learning, will become much, much more personalized. And I think that's actually something that we realized really, really early. It's not just about clicking and booking something. You really need to combine an agent in the process. And we do it through chat, we do it through machine learning. Our system knows when you look at stuff and you cannot find the flight that you wanted. So you kind of pop up the chat and an agent helps you. So I think you'll see this combination through chat, through payments, and a combination of a human element, machine learning, and buying experience. And we are very excited about it. And I think the second thing is this intersection between travel budget, that's really relevant for corporate travel, with other things, such as employees' wellness. So a policy that is not just based on directors flies business, but the rest of the employees are flying coach, but more based on how many times do I fly? How many trips do I do? And then really adjusting my policy based on that. And then carbon offsetting. So we've introduced 6 months ago a solution in our product that reports to the traveler and the company how much carbon they waste, and also introduce alternatives to them, but then also allows them from our product to offset, right? So I think this human element really catering to the wellness of the employees, budget, and being more environmental aware. I think this is really, you'll see it more and more in travel apps generally, but definitely in business travel.
So maybe you should cooperate with Tourlane.
Yes, we've already talked about it. Yeah. First of all, I'm going to definitely be a user, and I think there is definitely an opportunity to cooperate there.
Yeah. We're a customer. We use them at Hopper. I can tell you everything he's saying is true. They actually deliver on that promise.
Ariel, one last question for you. What is the reason why there are only so few specialized players in the business travel field?
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't come from travel. I'm coming much more from tech, and it's my second startup. And when I came to this industry, I came much more as a user, right? Everything, the type of service that I was getting from the Cohen providers didn't make any sense to me, right? It can take an hour to book your entire business trip, and then it can take another hour to get help when something is happening. So I think because of the amount of investment that you need to do on an infrastructure level, people and investors were kind of reluctant to invest in business travel. And therefore, you'll still see that 50% of the bookings are being done through an agent. And everybody probably in the audience here are familiar with this experience, right? You talk with an agent, you try to book with the online booking tool, you fail, then you call an agent, and then the agent will send you a screenshot of a terminal to tell you choose this flight to your email, right? It doesn't make any sense. But the infrastructure moat is a real one. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of money, a lot of time to get licensed globally, to build this infrastructure, to sign the agreements with partners. So I think a lot of investors and startups were shying away from that. But I think it's changing. I think that eventually, I'm pretty much sitting here and pitching that people will book online, right? It's kind of ridiculous. We're in 2020, and I think it's obvious that that's what will happen.
Thank you. Let's take a closer look at the ecosystem and the VC market. We've heard earlier in Lennart's keynote, nearly $44 billion of venture capital went into the travel and mobility sector, and that makes up 18% of the globally allocated venture capital market. So it's such an attractive segment. However, we see that most of the money is going to the US and to Asia. What do you think? I mean, you're entrepreneurs. Why do you think is that? Julian, maybe start with you.
I mean, I think in general, when you just look at the market sizes, yeah, I think where at least consumer travel is the high spending, it's China, US, and then it's Germany. So I think there's one correlation between market sizes and also the investments that go into the specific areas. However, I think like specifically for us, most of our investors are from the US, so we have seen that a lot of our funding is coming from the US into Europe. In general, I believe that we in Germany we have a great travel tech ecosystem. Yeah? I think there has been great companies produced in the last years, and be it Get Your Guide, be it Flixbus, be it now with Tourlane. So I think we can be confident speaking now where we are based in Berlin, knowing obviously much more the system here, that we won't be left behind.
I think I always call it the beauty of Berlin, because we have Get Your Guide, we have you, we have Omio and stuff like that. They're all coming out of Berlin. Do you have any explanation why Berlin?
I mean, I think there are some obvious. I think Berlin is a city of creativity, a very international city. So we at Tourlane have over 40, our employees come from over 40 countries. So Berlin, in its core, it's very international. Yeah. So I think it's a good spot to found a company. And what has also developed is the great ecosystem. Yeah, so I know the founders of all those companies, so they give good advices, and we can give good advices to the next level of founders. Yeah, and I think that's kind of when a real ecosystem is being created, and that's what has happened in Berlin.
Ariel, maybe also for you the question: why do you think what makes the market in Asia so strong? Maybe all the money, because prosperity is coming out of the BRICS states.
I think, first of all, relating to to the European market, so I'm looking at Berlin, and actually we are planning this year to open an office in Berlin and to start and bring TripActions to Europe and to various hubs. And we purposely selected Berlin because, to your point, right, it's a very open place, very international, a lot of tech, a lot of startups. So, and you actually see really cool startups there, right? Startups like N26, right, in fintech, or I'm using HelloFresh, right? So it's all kind of started in Berlin. And I think then when you look more towards China, right? So we have a very strong partnership with Ctrip. And obviously, you know, travel is growing there, and generally everything goes there, right? You see stuff like WeChat, right? Or any type of payment solution like Alipay and so on. You see it growing extremely, extremely fast. So it attracts, you know, obviously investors. But I think, you know, startups' investments in the last 10 years, I think as entrepreneurs, we're all fortunate. It's kind of went up, you know, I think everywhere.
Fred, you're Canadian?
Well, yes, I am. Montreal.
Yes, great.
Yes, very important to. So fundamentally, travel is an interesting category because, as I said, the total addressable market is 800 billion. There's no other equivalent to that except general e-commerce. So for scale, ride sharing is 60 billion, right? Like it is a huge, huge category. But there are two problems when you look at it from an investor perspective. One is very, very few companies make it to billion-dollar exits. It is a graveyard of startups over the past 2 decades that get to 100 million evaluation, and the venture capital money that we are all chasing needs a 10x or a 20x on these companies, not a 3x for the financial math of a fund to actually work. The second part, which is really hard, is it's a consolidated space. You basically have 3 companies, Booking Group, Expedia Group, and Trip Group, which is Ctrip, that own everything. Like they're like every of any size, and now Airbnb, they have Hotel Tonight and a few other things. So when you go to an investor, and I'm sure you're like, I'm going to do travel, no matter what you're pitching in your A round, 10 minutes in, they're going to cut you off and say, well, Expedia is going to do that. Booking, it's insanely, and like they're smiling because they've heard this 100 times. So one of the things is if you're copycatting a category that's already on fire, like ride sharing in 2008, the investors will throw money at you, like these stupid scooter startups that we're seeing everywhere. But fundamentally, if you are trying to enter a consolidated category where there's been M&A for 2 decades, the bar for that infrastructure, AI, data, scalability of people makes it very, very hard for an investor to make the leap, because the chance that you will be successful is actually lower, because you actually have to earn everything. You have big companies bidding on your ads. Like, it actually makes it harder. It's not that investors are dumb, it is more difficult. But what you're seeing in travel is that the exits are really, really big when they work. This guy might tell you his valuation after. It's actually very, very easy to get to the unicorn status because the market is so big, but it usually takes 5, 6, 7 years, 10 years to break out to that. So what that basically means is the type of funds that will make those types of investments and support the companies in ABCD rounds, unfortunately for Europe and Canada, tend to be in the Valley or in Asia. And that's a product of fund size and the ecosystem that's there.
Well, speaking about unicorns, when can we expect unicorn valuation from you? Well, he is.
I think we're
already.
the only one.
You too.
I mean, like,
No
for us, we are really not thinking about the valuations, to be honest. Yeah? I think we have so much work still to do. We have so much opportunity, and that's why we come to work every day to build our product, to make it better, and not to drive valuation.
Technically, we're at $1 billion Canadian. That's called a narwhal. It's not actually a unicorn. Anybody in the room that is aspiring to build a company, all you've done is created billions of dollars of expectation. It actually doesn't change your day-to-day, just as a side.
Yeah, I can add to this. I think, being on the other side, right, and achieving this status, I think it's actually not important. What's important is that, you have users, you have customers. It helps you a little bit when you're in a sales cycles with, B2B buyers. But on the flip side, it definitely raised the expectations. To your point about 10x, you definitely need to do at least 10x, when you're raising money. So it definitely does that, and does kind of mess up with, with the employees, right, in how they think about valuation and all of this. So I think it's not that important.
In my introduction speech, I said, or I mentioned the question of, are we still allowed to travel? So, I mean, if you look at the flying shame phenomenon, yesterday we've talked with Get Your Guide about over-tourism. Maybe can you explain, you've just started to mention that with the carbon offsetting you do, but Can you tell us a little bit what you do for sustainability? I mean, DLD's motto this year is, what are you adding? So maybe to start with you, Julian, what do you guys do in this field?
I mean, I think to start off, I think that's a very personal and conscious decision everyone has to take. Yeah.
With flying especially.
And I believe there's a big, I believe in very conscious travel. Yeah, so I think I don't see the value of flying from Berlin to Frankfurt to have a 1-hour meeting. Yeah, in days where you have these great conference systems. So there I'm very skeptical. I'm skeptical about flying every year to Mallorca to get tent. Yeah, but I truly believe in its core that travel makes the world a better place. Yeah, I think I don't envision a world without cultural exchanges. Yeah, I think it's such a life-enriching experience that makes people more welcoming and also less selfish. Yeah? But obviously, and they're now speaking as the father, I will do everything I can that the planet will survive. And at Tourlane, we have taken some really fundamental decisions right from the beginning. So one is we almost mainly work with real local providers, so that really the big part of the money stays in the local destination economies. Yeah? And we have built a large team around finding partners, making contracts with them. So we actually, the regions we send the customers to are profiting from them. Yeah? Apart from that, also I think definitely as a travel startup of the future, trips need to be carbon free. Yeah? And this is also what Tourlane does.
Fred?
Yeah, given the urgency of the problem, it is true we should be doing a lot less of a lot of things. We just passed 415 parts per million. The last time that there was that much carbon in the atmosphere was 3 million years ago. The right time to start curbing emissions was 1948, right? So it is an absolute emergency. And yes, we should fly less, but it is forecasted air travel at 6% growth. And no matter what we say on this stage, I can tell you that that's going to happen, just the way that the world is developing economically. So the real solution is technology and policy, but we've actually made a decision. We're announcing this on Tuesday, so there's going to be a media push outside of the US and Europe on this. We made the decision as of January 1st of this year, Hopper, off of its own P&L, so off of our corporate revenue and profits, we are offsetting 100% of all of the air that we sell. So we've done it through planting trees, because the technology is coming for a lot of things, including electric air, but the technology for a tree already exists, and a tree already knows how to capture carbon. That's just a true statement. How you do it matters, so we've partnered with Eden Reforestation, which is an organism that's been planting since 2005. They've planted 250 million trees. And what they're doing specifically, we actually had a hard time figuring out how to do this in a sustainable way that would actually not just be greenwashing. They're replanting in specific areas where we've cut down the trees. So Madagascar, Kenya, where we know the forest is actually going to grow. The problem with this is it takes about 4 years for a tree to actually be contributing. There's probably other people who have talked about this, but we've made it to a point where, as of January 1st, our customers can't opt out, and we're not asking them to pay. And I think the greater message that I'm sending at every opportunity that I can, government action, individual action is going to matter, but corporations have a responsibility. As the founder, we made the decision to take part of corporate profit at Hopper and put it to use for immediate action. And I've actually done this, and I'm going to do it here. Our competitors are 100 times our size, so Booking and Expedia will send 100 times more travel. Usually when we innovate, we're super happy to be the only ones doing something. In this case, I am publicly challenging the CEOs of the other travel companies to, with their profits, start immediately offsetting the carbon of their customers. And if they don't know how to do it, they can call me and we'll tell them how to set it up.
Ariel, maybe I think TripActions has an award also for business travels, right?
Again?
You have an award for business, or like for sustainable business travelers?
Yeah, so the way that we look at this, and actually I think you raised the bar from there, and I'm gonna definitely challenge you on that one. It's interesting to learn what you are doing, but we looked at this as really an opportunity to tell the companies, hey, this is what you are spending, right? This is the amount of carbon that you are spending, and also create some employees pressure there. That's why we are not just reporting it to the corporation, but we are also reporting it to the employees. And both actually knows how much they spend. And here is the thing, we are eventually, everybody here probably travel to be here, right? So there is something that you cannot replace, and this face-to-face element, right? It's extremely not efficient to do business when I cannot look at somebody in the eyes, right? And I don't think that people really like to travel, right, for business, right? You basically, it wastes a lot of time. You're out of your family. There is an hassle around it, and so on. But you do that because it's effective. The question is, do you know the alternatives? Are you offsetting, right? Am I, as a vendor that sell travel, that sell business travel, am I giving you all of the tools to offset travel? And what you've just talked about actually definitely got my interest, right? Should we actually, obviously we are offsetting our spend, the TripActions spend, but should we also do something around that with corporates that are not, offsetting? So that's definitely, as I said earlier, an area of focus for us.
Our time is unfortunately up, but like one last sentence. There has been so much happening in the travel industry in the last 10 years with the help of digitization or through digitization. What do you think travel will look like in 10 years? Maybe a sentence from each of you.
Yeah, I think much more personalized, much more like what you want. Really systems that will tell you and almost like book the stuff for you. I don't know if it will be completely automatically, but it will not be something that is that far from that.
Okay, Frederic?
We think mobile is going to enable what we call zero-click purchase through AI. So eventually you'll get something on your phone and it will be the thing that you wanted to do and you didn't know it, and it'll just buy it for you. We think that the amount of time that we spend planning is going to go radically down. The AI is going to do a much better job at it.
I totally agree with Ariel. I think it's about much more personalized. There's so much out there that I believe also travel has somehow lost its magic. It's not about standing in front of the Mona Lisa with 50 heads before you to take a picture, but it's about really a personalized experience that is also a little bit more healthy.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Ariel, Frederic, and Julian, for your time, and please give him a warm round of applause.